Good morning. It is 11 a.m. Pacific time on West Coast, Pacific Standard Time, and it is Thursday, so it must be Acumatica training class day. And today we're going to be talking about project quotes. Uh, so I'm going to just get started in the next um, minute or so. So project quotes and doing that in Acumatica. That's our topic du jour. Okay, let's get going. So again, today we're going to be talking about project quotes. So let's see what we have on tap. So first of all, for those that have not been to one of our training sessions, we have weekly training sessions covering different topics. Those can be found at acumaticaengineering.com/acumatica-training. These are for central nervous systems clients only. So you're not going to be able to Google that URL. So those that are on here, you are either one of the leads for your company, or that's been forwarded to you by a lead that is working with CNS. And so therefore you are here today. We have a schedule all the way through to most of the fall into November of 2023. Various topics. Some of the things get courses end up being done 4 times a year. Others a couple times a year. So get a chance to partake in them. If you've missed one, you will have other opportunities to take the same course again in later in the year. Again, useful for new employees as well. Give them a chance to get some training without um, you know having to go with a special training class. Every class will be recorded and available to you on demand, and that is found at acumaticaengineering.com/maintenance classes. Those usually get in um, a couple days after the training class gets completed. Those will go in. So what do we have upcoming? So if you see on my right hand side here, we're doing project quotes today, then doing financial budgets in Acumatica. That's going to be next week, next Thursday. And then on the 9th, we'll be doing some custom features that we have built in Acumatica. And so we'll talk about some of those on that session next. Um, as always, questions will be answered at the end of the presentation. Please submit questions using the question box as part of the webinar. You to see that there's a question section there. Just type in your questions in there, and we'll be able to then look at those questions at the end of the presentations, and always leave time for those. We'll answer as many as we have time for. Anything else, we will put out a video on our blog to give us a chance for others who wouldn't have known about that question to be able to listen to the answer. And we also reach out to the person who's asked the question directly and be able to answer them. So do check out our blog, centralnervoussystems.com/engineering-blog. Okay, so let's go forward. Lost my mouse there for a second. So what's on the agenda? Um, Talking about project quotes. So talk about quotes driving projects. So the quote actually drives what goes into the project. We'll talk about the quote workflow, how that works. Talk about project templates, make it easier to create predefined quotes because usually um, that's what we have. We have predefined quotes for different industry areas that we want to quote out for, and so having those as templates makes the process easier. Then we talk about estimation and really the heart of the quote, and finally some quote examples, different types of quotes that we can look at, and then review and answer any questions that you may have. So let's start off with quotes driving projects. A project quote is used to estimate a potential project and send a proposal to the customer. A quote can be modified as many times as necessary until an agreement has been reached. Set up an approval workflow. Um, each modification of the quote is reviewed and approved internally before we send it up. Send it out to the customer. After the customer agrees to the terms of the quotes, you can convert the winning quote to a project. And for those that do this on a regular basis, we all know that quote is not just a one version type of thing. It has many iterations, and so this process allows us to do that. So I want to next talk about the quote workflow. So create a project quote um, in the system. We submit the quote for approval, obtain approval for the quote, and maybe one person or multiple people, then send the approved quote to the customer for agreement, edit the quote after negotiations with the customer, and then convert the quote to a project. So let's talk about the anatomy of a quote on here, and then we'll look at it in Acumatica as well. So we've got actions up top on the quote, so we can submit the quote for approval. Once approved, we can convert to a project. Notice that quotes have a project template, and so that is a required piece. We need a project template in order to create a quote. You of course need a business account. The business account does not necessarily have to be a customer yet, because we could be doing a bunch of quotations to potential customers that are come through as opportunities, and we're going to try to win that business. But if we haven't won that business and we send out the quote and it's rejected, or they choose a different vendor, then we don't want to create a whole bunch of customers that aren't really our customers. So this allows us to create a quote to a non-customer, and once we've won the business, convert that to a customer prior to converting the quote to a project. A couple of things that we're going to look at with a deeper dive: the estimation and project tasks on the quote, and that information will be upcoming. But let's just look at the basis of a quote. So let me flip screens here so then we can see quote in Acumatica. So here's my quote. So notice that I have a quote number. The numbers are pre-populated, auto-populated. So they automatically will have a PQ and keep on going by the number sequence there. Here I have an opportunity. So an opportunity actually drove this quote. So the opportunity came in first, and took that opportunity. Sales team talked to the potential customer, um, or it could be an existing customer with a new opportunity. So it doesn't have to be a potential customer; it can be both, or either. The opportunity was getting created, and then now we're at the quoting stage. So from the opportunity, we went in and created a quote, and this is where we ended up with. So we've got a date, the status is in draft, and then we can put in some additional information here, including expiry date for this quote. Notice that project template, so you do need a project template, and we'll talk about that in a bit. Project manager right now is blank, but it could be assigned to a PM once we get to the endpoint where this is going to be converted across. Then we have a business account, so that's the customer or potential customer that we're dealing with, their contact information, and the owner here is on our side. Who is the person on the sales team that is working on this quote, and so that's that person on there, and then the currency, whether it's um, US, Canadian dollars, or euros, or whatever it may be. This currency is for the quote, so this quote is going to be done in US dollars on there. So this is the top level. Now I've got estimation, I've got project tasks. So I've got different tasks that we're going to be doing our estimation on, and then on the estimation side we have a task that's associated um, um, with each of these lines. Notice these are blank right now, so I can't go further than this because I need to make sure that I have a task associated with it. But that's what I have there. Billing info. So this is pulling in um, from the business account that was created. So again, this does not have to be a customer, or it could be a customer already. It all depends. So I'm going to have this information here, and again, send out some quotes and things like that to a potential customer if I need to. Under activities, I can put in different tasks, emails, and things like that, especially if I've got Outlook integration in my Acumatica setup, and some of the back and forths that I do as part of this quote can show up here for historical purposes. I can also add new activities and put in information so that anyone that's working on this project or potential project has that same information. So it's not privy to someone's inbox. That information is brought across, notes and things like that based on meetings. Put in that information so everyone's on board. But it's also useful once the project gets converted to, the quote gets converted to a project, so we win the job, to be able to have this information to go back to and say, oh, no, that's not what we agreed to 3 months ago, and look it up and go, yep, that's right. That wasn't what was agreed upon. Tax details. If we've got sales tax turned on, that's going to show up on there, and then approval. So based on the approval workflow that we would set up for the quote, having the different people who have put in their approvals on this particular quote. And of course, up here, we got our standard pieces of files and notes. And so we can bring in that information across, certainly drop in the files that we may have. A lot of people have Excel files or drawings or a bunch of things that they want to keep track of for this particular quote. You can drop it in here and that becomes part of the quote. And so then again, other people can pull that up. It's not sitting on SharePoint or anything like that. So regardless of where the person is and whether they're traveling or not, they can access that information, which is really useful and one of the very useful features in Acumatica. So that is the anatomy of a quote. So let's go next and talk about project templates. So remember, mention project template. So you create a quote, you must have a project template. And so, but what is the project template? So we know that we need it. So it allows us to define different project types we could use. So whether it's a time and material type of project, a progress billing with milestones, a total fixed price project, or it could be just an internal project. Not generally, we probably wouldn't be doing a quote for that. Um, but maybe we need approvals before building that out, and we do. Um, so that could be one of the things that we have. So each template has a set of default properties and tasks. So what we want to do is pull in, using a template, the different um, pieces that we have as part of a project, so that um, we don't have to enter that information in. That's one. Two, we can also ensure that by having it on the template, that things are being done properly, that the correct switches and options are being used, so then when we convert it in project, we don't have to then go into a scramble mode and go, oh, this wasn't set up properly. Templates allow us to have that consistency across the board. So on the project template, on the summary side, um, we would um, look at things of how are we going to be doing budgets? Are we doing it on the task level or on the task and item level? So for example, here my setup on the revenue budget is only at the task level. So I'm not looking to have a revenue budget based on people that are working, so different inventory IDs and being set up down to that level. There are some projects that clients have that do break it down to individual people or individual roles, whether it be a senior designer versus PM work, and splitting that up within a particular task. But generally, we we see task level for the budget. So with the client, okay, these are the four different tasks or deliverables that we're going to have, and here's the budget for each one of those. And so our revenue is being built based on that. On our cost side, we're breaking it down on the task and item level. So then we can see, okay, so this is what we've put the bid. When we win it, how are we tracking to that bid? Project manager, so you may have a project manager or not on the template. Probably not, unless it's very specific um, to a person, saying, okay, these particular jobs will go to this person. So putting in project manager, so this is one that we're not going to have potentially on our templates. The project currency, so what is the currency of the project? So is it going to be in US dollars like I have it here, Canadian dollars, euros? So that's how the project is going to be looked at. So our quote is going to be in that same um, project currency, so that we now have our budget the same as our actuals and so on and so forth. So then if we have costs and say we're Canadian and we have our costs that are being pushed through, those costs will be flipped into US dollars for the purposes of project reporting, to be able to see that. Because again, we're creating our budgets in US dollars, so we want to be able to see it against our budget. We can do change order workflow. So this is something that we would turn on. And change orders is not something that we touch in this class, but we do have a change order class. Did one about 3 weeks ago. So if you're interested in change orders, check out go to our video library and you'll be able to see change order and how those work. Then you can restrict employees. So if you have your workflow says, hey, I'm going to only allow certain employees to be able to book time or expenses to a project by restricting the employees, others won't be able to select it. It won't even show up as on their selection list when they're putting in time or expenses. And same thing with equipment. So if we're using equipment and we want to restrict what equipment can be booked to this project, by turning that on means that only the equipment that the PM has chosen to include in this project would be able to put through. Don't have to worry about tracking data. So let me go back here because we're not manufacturing um, for our engineering clients. Time and billing period. We'd want that on demand so we can bill it out at any point rather than at month end or at quarter end type of thing. So, but on demand means, hey, we can bill out when we choose to. Terms, so these terms would be the terms coming from the project. Those would override the terms from the customer. Allocation rules. So if we're running allocations, WIP allocations on fixed fee, potentially we'd be using that. Again, we're not going to be talking about that today, so therefore we're going to leave that one alone. And then the billing rule. And so we do need billing rules in order to invoice. In this case, this is going to be a time and materials project. So we have a billing rule. What branch? So what company does this belong to? And a rate table. So having a rate table to determine what is the bill out rate for our time and potentially our expenses, having that in there. And we'd always want to create a pro forma invoice on billing so that we can review that without messing around with our AR documents and having to create a whole bunch of credit memos. So with the project templates, we can also set up standard tasks to use with it. So here's all the different standard tasks that we would have for this particular type of project, or could be industry. Hey, this is what I expect all our customers to have. So this becomes our standard, so it makes it easy to add those pieces in without having to do that individually one by one, because it's going to pull from the template on there. Then we have a revenue budget, cost budget as well. So we can set that up in there. And we'll look at it in Acumatica and see how that comes through to give you a good idea of that. Okay, so let's flip screens now and let's look at our piece here. So, so I've got my project tasks in this quote, but I want to go to my templates. So I've got a project template. So I'm going to go into that. So for this one, I did a TMR labor. So that's the one that that I selected. So if I go to my project template, we see that particular piece in there. So I've got a whole bunch of different ones here. So I think this is the one that we were using, but we'll look at a couple others as well. So let's open this one up. So this was our setup. This is our template. Now I have retainage turned on in my setup here because I've got a license for it. So if we've got to do retainage and if that's something that you need to do and are struggling with that, that feature is available. Okay, not part of this course, but you're seeing this on screen going, oh, what is this? And rather than have a whole bunch of questions on, I saw retainage, what is that? This allows us to do holdbacks on our invoices for this particular project. So here's my tasks. So here I've got 2 tasks that have been put in there. So I've got a sales and admin time. So that's being internal charge. So notice there's no bill. So this is not something that we're going to bill out, but we want to track that that time to know. There's one thing to put in a bid for a particular job, but we know there's so much time that we can't bill out for, but we want to be have that task so then we can put it in our budget, and that'll allow us to be able to see whether we're losing out on the project or not. So if I go to my revenue budget, so again, for this one, simple one here, I have it on line 2. So notice this task here, implementation of the job, that labor is TNM. And so we've got a budget, a revenue budget of $10,000 only for line 2. We don't have a revenue budget for the other one because we're not going to build that. So that's why I'm only seeing one task there. So, but now I'm going to my cost budget and I'm seeing multiple lines. So let me go back to the summary. Remember I talked about 5 minutes ago about having a revenue budget. You can select task level, right? You can do task and item or just task. So in this case, the revenue is on the task level, but in the cost budget, I have a task and item. So I've got multiple lines because I want to track who is booking time. So I've got a cost budget for sales labor. This is my task number 1. This is one that I'm not getting billed out for, but I'm not going to bill out for, but I've got 40 hours at $25 per hour allocated to that, so that as people put time into this projects that are part of the sales and marketing team, they've got a budget there. And so, 40 hours, this is my budget here. And then I've got the work. So I've got different roles that are going to be doing this work. So I've got a junior, I've got a senior consultant, as well as a project manager on this job. And so we've got different rates for each of those roles, and obviously different budgets for those roles. So now I have numbers that I can use against this. Now I'm not limiting employees, and probably I'm not doing that on a template. But I'm potentially putting default accounts for my revenues, or default sub accounts to show up for my revenues. So back to my summary. So I've got this as my template. This is what's going to be used to drive my quote. Back to my quote. So how's that driven across? So my project tasks come through, and um, my um, my default budgets are going to come through here. We'll talk about estimation, but they will show up on here as something that I could use. Then I could choose whether I want to use that or not. But now I have the ability to pull in some of that information, and then potentially change the rates that I have to create my quote. So by doing that, I have a cost, I have a total sales, and away I go for this. So unit cost on here and unit price. So don't want to get ahead of myself. Let me go through the presentation the way it's supposed to be. So on the estimation side, I can then do my revenue and create my revenue um, by either a revenue type or by resource. I can put in that information um, through, so that I can see my total sales, my total cost, and bring that piece through to my estimation, because that's going to drive everything that I do. So everything that I have here is, including the gross margin, is being driven off of what I do down here um, as my quote. So just open up a different quote here. Show you what that's going to look like. So let's bring that screen forward, and let's see, should I? Yeah, let's go and make up a quote. So let's go and pull in a quote, create a quote based on um, a template that we're going to use, and see what that's going to look like. So let me bring that across. So before I do, let's look it up at a different template here. So I've got some that I've created specifically. So this is a CNS one that we use for demos. So notice here both the task and item are being looked at. So I've got a bunch more tasks here. Then I got a blank cost and revenue budget because this is going to be done on a one-off basis. So if I go to my project quotes, so I've got some further examples of things that I could be doing. So paint a picture here. So this is one that's using my project template, the CNS the TNM type, and I've got it broken down here by labor ID and so the role that's going to be played and the different tasks that are going to be done. Okay, so why don't we take that one and show you how that's going to look like as part of building this out for you. So here, second, so I'm going to create a new quote and I'll show my screen here. Flip screen shortly here. Want to have some information. Flip this back here. Okay, so let's create a new one. So I'm going to create a new one from scratch. I'm not going to pull it from an opportunity. Here's my date. The description is going to be it's going to be a new project as a description. So let's pull up the template that we were going to look at. Here's my template. No project manager on there. And let's charge it to ABC Holdings. Okay, and we'll make pretend that's Jordan's project here. So let's save that. So now that I've done that, my numbers automatically been updated. So I've used this CNS TNM project. Here's my um, my tasks that I want on there. My billing info is pulling in from my business account that I have here, so I'm good here, and I'm ready to go. So on the estimation side, so I've got my tasks, and I have different people that are going to be working on those tasks for me as part of the project. So let's go initiate here, and so we're going to have a project manager. So we want a project manager. So labor PM, put that in there. So that's going to pull in a standard that I may have in place there. So I'm going to put in 15 hours. So my standard now for my labor project manager is $70 per hour, but we charge out 150. So I can make adjustments to this because this will be my budget. So could be that hey, for this client we're only going to charge out $125 for that. Okay, so now that I've got that, now as part of initiation, I also need a junior consultant to do some work in terms of setting up things as part of the kickoff. So I need a labor junior. And they're going to spend, say, 7 hours to set it up. So rate is going to be lower for them, and we're charging that out at $80 per hour. And we'll do one more. Senior guy needs to be as part of the project, so we want that person to be there as well. Senior, so I want senior in there, and so they're going to be part of the kickoff meeting and so on and so forth, and a little bit of oversight, but most of the work is going to be done by the junior. But for this project, the senior guy is going to be charging out at $130 um, for that phase of the work, and then we get to go through and do a bunch more on here. So let's go and do as part of planning. So we want again some more. So I want a labor, senior guys. The senior guys going to be doing most of the planning work for it on here, and again, that's going to be $130 specific to this job, not necessarily our standard. We can also add things like a rental. So if I've got a oops, so wrong spot. So again, part of planning. Okay, so we've got some um, rental, maybe so it's a 8-week job, and cost is $300 a week, and we want to charge um, that out to the client, say 350, because we want to mark up on that for administrative work. It could be for a trailer or whatever it may be. So get the idea. So let's go to the next deliverable. So execution. So again, PM is going to be doing some work. For meetings, so this will be limited in the amount of work that the PM will do as part of this stage, but it's going to be the junior that's going to be doing the heavy lifting here. So we'll put so we could give them 150 hours of the work, and it depends on how we want to show this to the client. It could be that we're still going to charge them out at $130 an hour, and we're going to have some oversight from the senior guy. So for our margins, this is going to look better because we're going to use a junior guy to do the work that senior guy would normally do. So in case here, they could do some work oversight here. Their costs could be higher, but we could bill out the same. So it's going to be $200, 200 hours for this particular job here. It's part of the work detail that's going to be done. Um, we can also add things like truck and things like that to that work. Uh, so let's go to the fourth bar portion, which was report. So let's select that, and we're going to have the senior doing some of the work here. I'll paint this picture to give you an idea of the things that you can do. I'm typing all this stuff in. We'll talk about bringing that information in and sucking it into the to the quote. So subcon, create a subcontractor. So it could be that some of the work is going to be done by a subcontractor. Um, they're going to charge us $45 per hour. They're going to charge out still at 130. And then I think I have project closeout there. So the PM is going to be involved. 5 hours on that, making sure that everything's working through all right. And so the PM is being charged at 125. Okay, so by doing this now, I have brought in um, my revenue. So my revenues are here, my total costs are here. With my margins showing me my totals. Here's my quote. If I've got any taxes, then that's great. So I'm gonna save this here. Then once I have this, I can submit the quote. So notice when I submit the quote, it goes for approval. So the approval is going to finance as part of this approval map. And so as part of what I can do here is I can go in and approve as someone else. In our normal piece, that wouldn't be the case. So once I've done that, notice that it says prepared. So that means it's been approved. Now I can potentially send this out um, to the customer as a quote and wait for them to approve that particular quote and then come back um, to make changes, because generally it's not going to go as well as what we've just done, right? So um, it's going to flip back and forth on here, um, depending on the negotiations. So let's look at some of the things that you can do here. So this is one that this is a mock-up that we've set up where we're laying out, okay, so senior gets this is my hourly rate and so on. So these are our standards. So if we wanted to use, different rates, we would have to have either attributes or different things so that we can change that so that it reflects here. You have um, um, some default notes on there, and then here's the breakdown. Here's my quote total, and then potentially some signing offs, right? So we can build that in the quote, so then you're sending the document out of Acumatica to create. Now, what happens if they come back and say, hey, whoa, no, that's we need to adjust it and negotiate. So you can come back and edit the quote. Go back to here and saying, okay, so um, as part of the reporting side, we need to bring that number down because that's too rich here. So I'm gonna save on that. So that dropped it out by a couple grand, and the execution um, on here we made a mistake. This should be $125 per hour, and they wanted to say, okay, hey, what if we can get someone cheaper to do the work rather than the senior guy? So although we're charging out, we're doing that ourselves here. They've asked for relief, so we'll drop that down to $100 to bring the quote down. Once think we're okay with submit it again, goes back to person to approve. Then we go back to um, proof. Here we go. So now it's approved, and we can then convert to a project. So once we convert to a project, then the project will create um, um, and pull in all the budgets based on what we've entered here. So let me see if I can pull it off. So when I do convert this to a project, we can bring in some information. So I'll bring in that. I'm not going to activate those two. I'm going to copy any notes or any files and bring that across. So I'm going to select those and okay, so now that I've got this project, um, notice that all my information that's been brought across from my templates are the things that I've come across into this project. So this is what the template had, and so therefore this is what's going to be bringing in, brought in my tasks, brought in my revenue budget. Remember this one I had task and item as part of my template, so it brought that information, brought in my cost budget. So it's given me my things here. If I look at my balances, here's my um, total revenue and expenses. So it's giving me my information that I'm expecting to see. Didn't have to do anything. It's now created this project on its own. Once the project has been created, notice that it does quote back to the quote that I created beforehand. So here's my quote that I can go back to. Okay. So that is the presentation on quotes. So do a quick review, have a quick check, see if you've got any questions. And usually for this kind of this presentation, we do have some questions. Um, yeah, and I've got a couple here related to the same thing. Of okay, so how can we make the entry of the quote um, easier? So if I go back to my quote here, and I've got my, you know, spent about 7 minutes, 7, 8 minutes initiating this here. Can I have that a template or something that populates this piece automatically? Well, you can do this. Um, and upload it from an Excel sheet. So if you are doing this over and over again, and you have the same sort of layout and expectations, you can do this in an Excel sheet and then upload it back in here and have that populate through. So then you have that template ready to ready to go specifically on the execution stuff on the estimation tab. So you don't have to go and type in each one of these over and over again. Um, it all depends on the setup and whether you're you know how you're breaking this down, whether you're breaking down um, by on the item level on the cost side or not. So that is one of the tools that you can bring in. Or you can also copy a quote, a previous quote. You can come in and say, okay, so I want to copy this one. Boom, copy that one, and it would create the quote. Or you can paste from a template. So one, we have a project template which is needed here, which feeds into the project. But you can create a blank form basically. So if I let's go create a new one. And by clicking onto that, notice all the stuff is filled in. So you can do that as well. So a lot of people will move on to this or copy from a previous one because hey, this job is very similar to the job that we did for XYZ company, and so you know that will be our starting point and pull that portion in. Or you know people live in Excel and maybe we have a whole bunch of different you know models and pivots and things like that that we're using that's outside of Acumatica that we want to then bring that in here at this level to create our quote and our printouts. Okay, so that's something that we can do as well. So hopefully that answered questions on you know making it faster. So one more question while I'm in here is, what if, we talked about the issue of, uh, you know, the example that you showed earlier, which was uh, the internal costs not billing out. So how would you do something here where you're not having that, but we want the budget to show? So I could make this and say this PM work, for example, I have a cost but I have a zero here like that. And so what it will do is it will create a zero revenue budget um, for that task and for that item. And it could be that all three of these are all zeros, but the cost is still coming through because that is something that I need to account for. So I could come in here and say zeros to these three like that. Um, Save that. It affects um, my uh, my total sales value, but my cost is going to be the same. So my margins is affected by that. But again, I want to track all my costs that are being worked on this project, so I know, hey, what I'm quoting out is going to be accurate. So another good question there. Okay, so let's review this, and if you've got more questions or questions to my answers to those questions, please do type that in right now. We'll do a quick review. So talked about quotes driving projects. So we saw that a couple minutes ago where we converted the quote to a project, and that created everything that we needed in the project. Talked about the workflow. So we go and use a template, create the quote, add in our pieces that we need to do to have in there. Once as the sales and marketing team, once I have a quote that I'm happy with, could ask for approval, internal approval. Once I have that, then can send it out to the customer for their approval. Once I get that, either I need to make changes and revise it based on the customer's requirements, and then go through the process again. And once I have a sign off from the customer, flip it over to a project that may be done on the sales by the sales team, or it may be going to the finance team that's going to be flipping that over because they may need to flip over the business account um, from a non-customer to a customer, and so maybe we want that. So it comes down to unique workflow that you need to build for the um, where you know how the client wants it. So how you guys need to have it, we build the workflow for that. Talked about project templates. So that is, building out the templates that will be used for the quote. Then we talked about estimation and building out the quote with the budgets, and then a couple examples that we worked through, created one from um, from scratch. We also, as part of the questions, we talked about inputs, so how to put in a quote, to use Excel, or use the copy and paste feature, or use a quote template, which is different than a project template, which is just basically a standard copy that we can use and then change up. So a couple more minutes left, so let's touch base again. Joined us for our weekly training class. So we have those covering different topics. Uh, please do review and sign up. This is available only to CNS clients. So you being one of them, there's something that you feel that you should be part of, or someone else in your organization could benefit from, please share that link with them so that they can join us and gain some insight into the job that they're doing. every class will be recorded and available to you. So will this one. Should be up sometime tomorrow at acumaticaengineering.com/maintenance-classes. Be able to find that class and view it again and try it out, see what I did, and potentially try it out in your sandbox and try to um, do something with your system that maybe you didn't know what you could do, or things like that. So this is useful to start and stop, and maybe you missed something, and or you had a call and you want to listen to it again. Have a quick look. No, so only the two questions that were there. I was able to answer those. If anybody, of course, have questions after this, and you try it on your own, and you need some guidance, to reach out to us as part of our continual support. We'll be there to help you out with any questions that you may have. Do check out our blog at centralnervoussystems.com/engineering-blog. Next week is financial budget, so budgeting on the financial side. So really cool class on that one. And then we're going to be doing a CNS custom features showcase on the 9th, and then reports using Report Builder and going through the Report Builder, or the paper reports as I like to call them, going through that process on March 16th. So next 3 sessions in March, those are what we're going to be talking about. As always, thank you very much for joining me today. Look forward to talking to you in the coming weeks. Do enjoy the rest of your day and rest of the week, and we will talk again soon, and maybe as soon as next week. Have a wonderful day, and take care.